Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Bassi. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Good to see you too. We begin in Asia. Massive losses on the Asian markets that we haven't seen in quite a number of years. And there's a number of reasons behind that. So across the board, China, in Korea, in Japan particularly, and also in Australia and the like. So here we go. Across these markets falling. The MSCI Asia Pacific Index, 3.6% drop, biggest decline we've seen since about 2021. Japan's Topix, 5.1% drop, biggest drop since 2020. The Nikkei 225 down about 5.81%. These are export-oriented indexes, and it's all because of what's been going on with the Japanese yen. Speaking of the Japanese yen, the government has finally come out with data to show that they intervened again in the market. So 36 billion is what they spent. That's Nigeria's entire FX reserves. They spent from July 27th to the 29th. I'm just comparing now. 62 billion they spent from April 26th to May the 29th, and it's their first intervention since October. So what has happened is the yen has gone from a 34-year low of 160 to a strengthening to about 145. And if you think about Japanese markets, particularly the Topix and the Nikkei 225, it's export-oriented. So you've got companies like Samsung, Nintendo, Toyota, and so on and so forth. When the yen gets stronger as a result of the Bank of Japan increasing rates by, I think, about 25 basis points on Wednesday, the yen, of course, when you increase rates, you make your securities more attractive and your currency appreciates. And a stronger yen makes Japanese exports more expensive. And then there's also, other issues about, worries of a global slowdown and so on and so forth. So from Japan, we go to the UK. The Bank of England yesterday cutting interest rates for the first time since 2020, for the first time in 4 years. So if you take a look at the metrics, it was a pretty close vote. I mean, the last time when they held rates, it was a 7-2 vote. If you look at the MPC meeting and the reactions from there, it was 5-4. They're still worried about service inflation. They're still worried about wages. Don't forget, the junior doctors in the UK are looking for a 35% increase. They've been offered, I think, about 20%. That 22. You can imagine what that means for doctors in Nigeria and elsewhere if you hear that doctors in the UK are getting paid more. So that thing is still up there. So service inflation, wages still a concern. They forecast inflation to rise by about 2.8% second half of this year. They're looking at about 2% through 2025. Go to the US, earnings coming in. They have lots and lots of earnings that have come in so far this week. I think we're going to start with Apple. Apple, of course, beating estimates. You did see China revenue falling, but if you look at overall revenue, 85.8 billion dollars, 4.8% growth. China revenue did fall. You know about the government's trying to restrict its civil servants also using Apple products, also more competition. 14.7 billion, 7% drop. iPhone revenue, the flagship of the company, down a smidgen by 1% to 39.3 billion. But look at services revenue, climbed 15%, about 24.2 billion. I didn't put iPad revenue. That also jumped double digits as well. I'm pretty excited for the iPhone 16. Apple, in their forecast, says that they're expecting most iPhone users, at least those with a 14 or a 15, to upgrade to the 16 because of the fact that they're going to be melding Siri. I just said Siri and she answered. Siri with OpenAI's Chat GPT. So they're expecting that. And services revenue was also very impressive. That is Apple TV, Apple Pay, and so on and so forth. That also jumped by double digits. Amazon also reporting earnings, but unfortunately, Amazon kind of disappointed.
I found this on the web.
Yeah, you see, that's Siri talking. So it's Amazon Q2 revenue of 148 billion, but unfortunately coming in under estimates from Wall Street, despite climbing 10%. AWS, this is their cloud services division. Amazon Web Services, 19% growth, $26 billion. Their ad revenue coming in 20% higher. I mean, look, they beat across these metrics, but unfortunately, Wall Street was expecting more. And another important number to look at is the bottom left of your screen. Property and equipment investment. There are logistics outfits, which includes spending on artificial intelligence, a 50% climb. So Wall Street was pretty worried about the fact that, look, you're putting all this cash into AI investments. We're not really seeing the return. We're getting US job numbers later on today. It's expected, that's for July, it's expected that about 177,000 jobs is what the US would have created in July. June was about 207,000. We'll get those numbers later. We'll get into it on Monday. Coming to Nigeria, you've talked about the protests. The Kano Digital Village, under the auspices of the digital ministry, the Ministry of Digital Economy, ICT. It was looted. Apparently, parts of it was burned. You're looking at pictures that were posted in Kano. I think there's a curfew, I believe, in Kano as we speak. 24-hour curfew. So this, of course, is what people were worried about. Bosun Tijani, the minister, of course, put out a tweet, and it's very easy. It says, sad to learn our Digital Innovation Park in Kano, slated for launch next week to support our technical talent accelerator, has been set ablaze and looted by protesters. Along the 3MTT, this building is set to host our Build-a-thon Holiday Maker program for secondary school kids starting next week, a slight setback for our journey to deepening our workforce for technology while creating job opportunities. And let's look at the last line, millions of naira down the drain. Round off with Femi Otedola, the strong man of the capital markets. I thought this was very interesting, and there's been a lot of chatter about this. He's come out in favor of the bank FX tax. And of course, this is the chairman of FBN Holdings, right, of a bank. And so let's take a look at some excerpts from what he wrote to the press. We'll quickly run through those. He said, dear members of the press, writes to express my strong support for the implementation of a windfall tax in Nigeria to highlight the critical role this measure plays in fostering a fair and more equitable economic environment. He continues saying that windfall taxes are levies on companies or individuals who receive substantial unexpected profits. I'm going to touch on that in a second, due to circumstances beyond their control or investment. Taxing these extraordinary gains ensures a fair distribution of wealth, allowing those who benefit disproportionately to contribute more significantly to the broader societal good. He continues saying that this extraordinary gain should be redistributed to fund critical infrastructure development, education, healthcare, public welfare, and alleviating the cost of living crisis many Nigerians face, which of course ties into the protests that we're seeing. And then finally, he talks about spending on the banking side. It's crucial for banks to focus on operational efficiency, technological innovation, and customer service rather than executive extravagance. Nigerian banks are spending an estimated $50 million annually on maintaining private jets, with over $500 million gone into purchasing 9 jets by 4 banks. This level of extravagance significantly erodes public trust. Just 2 points, right? If you are going to tax banks for making extraordinary gains from a devaluation of the currency, are you going to give a tax credit to manufacturing companies and pharmaceuticals that suffered an extraordinary loss from the same devaluation? For shareholders who have taken a risk for investing in the equities market and investing in banks, if you're making an extraordinary profit, your net profit, your bottom line, is 2 things you can do. You either pay it out in dividends or plunge it back into the company in terms of retained earnings. So a lot of the pushback is that it's the shareholders who should be enjoying that. And look, finally, private jets, they are there for executives to get to destinations as quickly as possible. The private jet market in Nigeria is thriving, and it's not just bank executives. It's other people as well. So again, he's a strong man of the capital markets. He's got a contrarian view here. Yeah. He's caused a lot of discussion. Very interesting.
But I totally condemn that destruction of that ICT center in Kano. But I'm also happy. I heard Bosun Tijani saying on television yesterday that some companies have indicated interest on how they're going to build back.
Which costs money.
Which is going to cost money. But some said they're going to do a lot of gratis for them. So that's going to be a collaboration of effort. If we can get that place back on track so we can help those young people out there, get them skills and all of that.
Jobs are fine. You talk about it all the time.
That's the reason for the protest.
All these guys are unemployed.
They're unemployed. And this is even the worst of
jobless.
Ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
So Kano is a reminder of what the protesters were talking about yesterday. As regards Femi Otedola, see, I get the argument you're making, Rotus, that all of this is because of, foreign exchange devaluation, which is not money in the first place, which is even just paper money.
Exactly.
It's just money in their books. But also, I also strongly support the point of Femi Otedola as regards this private jet by these bankers, this extravagance. Rotus, bankers are supposed to be very conservative. How do you instill public trust when most of these private jets are even used to carry their girlfriends?
How do you know?
That's the kind of country we live in.
You should provide empirical evidence.
Truth is, when you see most of those private jets, you say it's to get up and go.
Yeah, quickly.
Get up and go, Lagos and Abuja quickly.
Well, no, also foreign trips now, also overseas.
It's not always the case. It's just a clear case of it. And see, nobody has the bona fide like a chairman of FBN Holdings to say that.
Of course.
So he knows more than we know. Yeah. And if he says that, Otedola has empirical evidence to say that. I'm not saying about that money. Yes, we must not tax that money. But when Otedola talks about extravagance, nobody knows better.
Gotcha. Right, it's not just Femi Otedola, Mr. Femi Otedola, chairman FBN Holdings, who said that. Mr. Tony Elumelu, chairman of UBA, has also come out to say that he's in support of the windfall tax. In fact, he said that because a few representatives of bank executives met with the president, and following that, we had this statement, show of support, saying that, in fact, the word that he used, which I found interesting, is let us democratize prosperity so that we're able to have an equitable distribution of wealth in Nigeria.
So
and part of
you
doing
guys,
that.
let's record this. So
yeah?
Rufai and Ayo are supporting a tax
I'm stating the facts first of all.
So you're not with the tax?
I'm not with the tax.
Okay.
From day one, I've always condemned the tax. Because that's not real money.
Yes.
Right.
That's even paper
I'm
money.
stating the facts
So
of what
taking
has happened.
70% out
I'm
is
stating the facts.
Where are you stand?
So let me now stand. I'm stating the fact that it's not just, another bank executive. So both of them have come out to say that, since they made a lot of money, and in light of what is facing the country, for that. But I agree with your point of view, Rotus, in terms of the fact that if they're going to have a windfall tax because of the a lot of profit that was made based on some policies around foreign exchange, then that money should be channeled immediately to support businesses. And
that
also,
lost money.
That lost money.
Yeah.
Also, it also demonstrates what happens when the government provides an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. When that happens, then you're able to tax and gain revenue from businesses. Exactly. And this is why you must invest in businesses, small businesses in Nigeria, so that we're able to get some much needed revenue and not just depend solely on our own revenues.
Okay, let me start with the Otedola position before I go to Britain. Now, Mr. Femi Otedola, chairman, First Bank Holdings, certainly knows what he's talking about. Now, what I take away from him is his emphasis on trust, service, integrity. And he, as chairman of FBN Holdings, he must have seen that those core values that upheld the banking profession have been eroded. Once upon a time in this country, bankers were very conservative people. Yes. Nobody saw bankers. If you saw a banker, they were very diligent people because they help us to keep our money. All of a sudden, these bankers have become
superstars, celebrities.
They become Nollywood stars.
Yes.
They hold birthday parties in Spain, and all of that. Doesn't.
But Dr. Bankers around the world now.
Wall
Street bankers.
But I understand what Femi Otedola is talking about
of course.
when it has to do with corporate governance.
Yes.
And he's talking about fair distribution of wealth, and he's talking about revenue for government. However, there's another side to the story. There's been a report by ProShare, which is a financial analyst outfit that you are familiar with. They've done a report they call The Pains of Windfall Tax. Now, in that report, I'll just summarize very quickly. They say, yes, windfall tax, they do it in other places. After all, in England, there was windfall tax against the oil companies.
That's right.
But there will be compensation. Now, the precedence in Nigeria here is that nothing is being given back to the banks. That's number one. Two, the report says the law is being made to have retroactive effect, which is unconstitutional, as has been established in Akugas versus FIRS in 2002. And finally, that report by ProShare is also saying that investor confidence could be affected. So there are two sides. There are two sides to the story.
Yes.
But about trust, service, and integrity that Mr. Otedola is insisting upon, I think we cannot argue with that. Finally, in Britain, the tax cut from 5.25% to 5%, where it's very small, but there will be advantages for people who have mortgages.
That's right.
The lenders are already reducing their money. Government debt, there's going to be some breather in that regard. But the big elephant in the room is that the economists this morning are saying that the reduction, the tax cut, is coming so late that it's not going to have any difference. Rachel Reeves has already given us her plans for the October autumn budget.
Yes.
And she's not going to roll back on spending costs
or
the tax increases that the Labour Party has promised in the manifesto.
That's right.
So they're saying it will be marginal. But what I take away from Judge Bailey was his point that, well, they will be watching data. You know, the same thing that you hear from them in the United States. They are always watching data. But as a result of that reduction, stock markets in Europe have also gone down. So there's a global reaction to what has happened in Britain.
Indeed.
Thank you, Rotus.
Good
to have you back.
Hey, thank you.